So these are now coming with occupancy sensors also in the back, and it'll register in the front if if the back seat's not clipped in. Some of them will have sensors, some of them will just be waiting for it to be clipped on, so it'll show registering as if someone's not wearing the seatbelt even though there's no one in the back. But it won't go beeping or anything like that. There's a lot of scary pieces in here that can scratch. This is where you pretty much either have to have someone help you or you just have to have a lot of experience. We have these pieces that can scratch because these nice little brackets are sticking out way out. So they have a tendency of catching on something. And I think there's plastic underneath the seat here too. A lot of strength and a lot of patience and a lot of technique. So I guess bear with me. When you have a seat this large, they usually come apart, or if they don't, the bottom cushion usually just comes off and the frame stays intact, and you just build the lean back and then do the same thing I did with the front seats. I took this one off because it was obvious, and when you're trying to take these off, they don't always have clips. They usually just be 2 screws or 1 screw, and they'll be hooks. So this one has one hidden underneath. Now we have everything exposed and we can see what we're working with here. So what I want to do, I want to get this off as easy as possible. But in doing so, it looks like there's a lot of moving parts here. So we can actually see the bolt that I want to access right there. That way I can remove the lean back from there and I can work a little bit better on it. This fat one right there. Now sometimes when you're taking these off, the covers won't have the holes pre-cut. So I'll place the screw back in place and use it as a guide, so when I go back to look for the holes, if it's not pre-cut, I'll know where to look. Now that's that Loctite I was talking about. This one's yellow, it's usually blue, but the way it works is they'll just dip them, and once they put it in, it'll solidify and keep the bolt from running itself out. Because they do vibrations and everything. Because these won't have like lock nuts or lock washers, and those, they're kind of like offset, so when they tighten, they squeeze down, they apply the pressure, and with that pressure applied, it'll keep the nut from wanting to run itself out. But without that pressure, it'll just do this slowly and surely, and it'll eventually just start working its way out. With the Loctite, it'll prevent that. With the lock nuts, it'll prevent that. Keeping that pressure on there will keep it from getting loose. Now you see these straps here. Just try to keep in mind that there's straps there, because once you put these zippers on, you get it in the car and these clips go on. Some of these zippers go all the way around. So when they're tucked in underneath, you'll have to take everything out just to access it, stick your arm in there and work this little cord right through that little pre-sewn hole. And it's just more work. So again, when you're doing it for the first time, just take your time and look at every little piece that's there. And remember that the cover is not going to be identical to the cloth. They purposely design it slightly different so it'll fit slightly different and look better. A lot of them will have extra pieces, or they won't have these clips, so you'll have to hog ring it to the actual frame or attach it somehow. They're not always going to be different, and I usually like to say that if it's there for a reason. So if you don't place it back in its proper place because you just want to cut a corner or whatever, either the cover's going to work itself out, it's going to wear different, something will happen. It always does. It's never, oh, it's nothing's going to, it does. If anybody says it's not, they just don't want to admit it. Now again, keeping the cover in place, taking a good look at where everything goes, because these straps, once you get the cover on there, they might be out here, and you'll think, oh, I can just pull it over. But by doing so, it's gonna warp it slightly different and cause the foam to look different. So you're gonna have a bubble here or some gathered material there. Just take a quick look where it goes. Everything is tucked inside the frame. So now I know that's where I gotta do it when I put it back on there. Also, the foam seems pretty sturdy, but if you pull too much, you're gonna rip the foam. And if you rip the foam, sometimes it doesn't want to go back in place properly. Keep that in mind when you're just pulling it out. That's literally all it is. And then the mechanism, looks like that. I struggle taking it off. I probably struggle putting it back on, but sometimes it'll just fall right into place and you don't gotta really stress it. Another reason why I like to put the screws in the holes, because when you start removing those small little pieces, you tend to forget. Because once you start getting into the whole mode of putting it together and moving on to the next part, you'll forget it. And then if you didn't put the screw back, you will have a hard time finding the holes, and you're not going to want to take it all apart. And especially once you put in the zipper and you tuck it and you clip it, you don't want to work that hard either. So I'll do the same thing. Make little slight cuts just so it'll wrap them out. There's the strap. That's why I'd taken the razor blade to cut the cover off. You'll cut that strap, and if you don't have a sewing machine or really good glue, it's gonna show. Make sure everything is where it's supposed to be. You see, there's no pre-cuts for all those things that took off on the back, and this carpet's really thick, so to feel for those tiny little holes is going to be really difficult to do. That's why I leave the little screws in there. And again, open the covers up, make sure all the listings are where they're supposed to be. Make sure there's no abnormal wear or anything that shouldn't be on there. All right, on a big piece like this, I like to start on the inside and then do like inside here, inside there, outside, outside. Because usually these listing rods will go all the way to the top and you have 3 more sections you got to hog ring. So if you just do one little section at a time, it allows the cover to be still pliable to where you can fold it and do the middles. And then do one here, one there. But I'll show you right now. The same thing, keep an eye out, kind of make sure it's centered. That's why I'm doing the inside, because this listing goes all the way across. So if I was to do this top listing, I'd have to really fold in there to get into those listings. But if I do these two sides first, all I gotta do is fold the cover over and I can just attach it right there. Make sure it's on there properly, center it real quick so you have a good idea. Very good on the top. Straps, make sure you put that first. The hole is pre-cut and pre-sewn, so all you got to do is just feed it right through. It will try to work itself back in through the hole. Just try to keep that in mind. Once you cover it over it, when you're pulling and pulling here, it'll just start pushing itself right back in. We've said everybody does their covers different. Some people like rather clip it first. I highly recommend that you put the zipper on first, because with the zipper on both sides, it'll apply all the pressure, and all the pressure you got to do is pretty much here. But without the zipper on there, everything's going to be shifting on you, so it'll make you work a little harder. But if you put the zippers on first, you won't work as hard. It's already giving me tension and resistance, so you pull the covers closer just to give the zipper a little bit more relaxation, so it doesn't have to work so hard to close all those teeth. Another thing right here. Now all that stuff I was doing, and look what it caused. It caused that foam to go right underneath the frame. Now, if you weren't paying attention, you'll zip that up and you'll be like, all right, it's fine. But that's gonna push the front forward. So once it's in the car, it's gonna look off. And you'll smack it all day, it will not go around that tube. And then you have to take it back out, and once you pop that in there, everything forms into place, and then it'll look right. Be careful with these things. It'll take your skin right off. Like I said, they don't file anything down. So now it looks right. If the teeth tend to catch, you'll see like a small little gap like that. Just run it back over a couple times, it should go away. Right there. We're good to go. Now, I say that because that'll be the point where it's gonna wanna pop once the covers tighten up, because they're gonna wanna wrap themselves around this foam. Once we got that on there, this is the section where I cut. Just place it inside and roll it, and you should be fine. This right here, I'm going to utilize this that catches on everything to just pretty much grab that. So it's almost like it wants to grab, and it'll help you out when you're clipping everything. And you want to stick your fingers inside these clips. It does hurt, and it takes a while before your fingertips get used to it, but it's not going to hurt forever. You pull it nice and tight and just roll that clip right into that channel. You hear that snap, you're good. That one went in good, but usually it'll be one big long one, a little cut here. It'll throw the whole cover off. You just want to take your time, or like what they did, put relief cuts in them, split that clip up, so that way you'll be able to maneuver it better. Because if you have that whole clip, you got to work with that whole clip. If you have this little piece here, that's all you got to focus on. If you don't want to use your fingertips, you can always use your door tool. Try not to use a flathead screwdriver. Even if it's a nice used one that's not too sharp on the end, because you're applying so much pressure, you might go right through it. And especially if you're working really close, you pan and you probably will stab yourself in the face. If you're lucky, worst case, you'll take your eye out. All right, so now we're finished there. So now you do the screws. Now because this is nice and wide, you can, you don't have to be so precise with the hole. And there it is, exposed. You have your drill set. Try to get something with a magnetic tip. It'll save you a lot of headache. Make sure the cover is pretty much the way it's supposed to be. Now you'll see you have your headrest post here and the seam is right on top of it. That may cause a problem. So you gotta be real careful with that, because when you cut that, if you come too close to that seam, it'll pop it and it'll just keep unraveling itself. Just make sure everything is lined up, everything is smacked up. This one does not fit as tight as the front seats, but that's okay. You don't always want your leather portions to be too tight, because then they'll get so tight that they'll begin to get hard. They need room to breathe, room to flex, to expand, to contract, all that good stuff. So this right here is acceptable because it will tighten up. Everything else, like on the front seats, they're way tighter like these are. That's okay. They're gonna get more wear and tear than the back seats, but the back seats are gonna get all of the heat, all of the sun, all that stuff. So you want a little bit of play in that. I will start with the hard one first. So I'm gonna push the material back away from the headrest posts, because that seam is about a ½ inch on each side. They're just bunched up. So you wanna make sure you get it like right here. You can almost see it. It's right there. That's the part that I would have cut. It would have threw me off and I probably would have popped the stitch. So you pick it up, fold it over. And now it's flat, so now you know the seam is nowhere around there. So now you can start your cuts. Again, position your finger on it and just pivot right on there. Not going too deep. Now this portion is leather, so this is the part that you have to be real careful and real precise, because that hole is not going to want to stretch over. Now the foam looks like it's glued to the leather, but it's actually not. They do it so that way, like I said, it allows the leather to stretch and contract and move around like regular skin on your body. All right, so now I made the hole, but as you can see, it's not gonna stretch over. I could force it, but it'll start to rip and we don't want that. So I'm just gonna make a little bit more of a bigger incision, just enough. And always looking for the side that has the button, because that's the side that's going to give you the most trouble, especially when it's leather. All right, now we got it. Now you see how it just goes over now, but it's not too big and it's not too small. It just tucks itself in. Now here we start on the side with the clip, the button I mean. We'll just slowly work it over. Done. Do the same on the other two. It should be good. Again, folding the seam over, making sure it's not on top of my headrest posts, so I can better cut this properly. I'm not going too deep with the actual razor. And again, you can use your scissors. But just make sure you don't go too deep on your scissors, because your scissors will be sharp. So once you're making that first cut and you're trying to go across, you can slip and go all the way across. Now these can be anywhere. It could be, the pressure clips can be there, it could be here, it could be there. You never really know. But my main concern is this piece right here. So I'm gonna say the clips are more towards the back. I'm pushing down and I'm pushing back, because if there's clips on the front, if I just yank up, they're gonna break those teeth right off. Plus with this mechanism, so you see, 2 little clips there and 2 tucked way in there. And it's not really a lot of room in here, as you can see, because they have the cloth on there. Once I put the leather, or if it's vinyl, it's not gonna go on as easy, just like I took off. So, they put that strap in there because they got to make that hole there, so that strap will keep the hole from doing this. So that pressure will just be applied down there. Sometimes the covers come with that, sometimes they don't. I like to cut right at the seam, just in case, out of habit, even though there's nothing in there. But if you're doing that on the front seats, always go on the seam, because sometimes they'll have a sensor that wraps right around where the airbag goes, and that's really bad if you cut that. Alright, these you can put on one of 2 ways. I usually go off of how the foam feels. Like this particular foam just grips on everything. There's some foams that are really smooth and the cover just slide right on. But because this one likes to grip and hold on to everything, we're gonna do the reverse technique. Basically inside out. Match up the holes. If it didn't have a hole there, usually you want to look for where the seams go towards in, and that'll let you know if you have it upside down or not. The vinyl is usually on the inside, the leather is almost always on the outside, depending on what the vehicle is. You get your little strap in there first, just like you did the lean back. And you line up the seams the best you can. You don't have to be too perfect, because once you put the cover on, you can go back and adjust it. Here you go, and same thing. Fingers on the ends of the seams and just roll it on there. Now it's already wanting to go sideways, which is fine. Just get it on there and you'll be able to fix it later. And once you get it on there, just start eyeballing the seams to make sure that it's all straight so you're not going this way. Alright, so we got loose there, seams are off there, same thing there. Once it's all on there, just start pulling it towards yourself, pulling it towards down, whatever is more comfortable for you, in order to get those seams to line up. That's on there, tuck in your flaps, make sure none of that foam is too exposed. Lay your clip on there, tuck it properly, and just do a quick look, make sure the seams are kind of lined up the best you can. That's it. Now we put on the cup holder. Now because this has that moving part, you might want to take some of that material that's around the locking mechanism and just cut a little bit around it, only to keep it, like as you can see right there, it's wanting to go on top of it. You want to keep all material away from any moving mechanism and parts, because it'll just get caught in there and get stuck. Just a little bit. So now we're good, it's free, nothing's inhibiting it. And now let's see if the cup holder goes back in place good. Some of these will be more centered, and some of them will have certain clips on certain sides. So you just take a look inside to see what the impressions look like. If they're big impressions, and that right there tells you it's the big clips that go on that certain side, or vice versa. So the clips are really small, so I'm not gonna cut anything away. Maybe because it's vinyl, it'll pop in place. I hope. And it did. There, make sure everything's working the same. See why I cut the material off there? Because all that goes in there. So if the vinyl was there, it would probably be right on top of there, and it would do this, nothing. But because it's not there anymore, now it has room to play. So now we're good. Cut any little threads sticking out. Now this doesn't look like it's pre-cut, so we're gonna have to make a hole in it. If we do it right, it won't look so bad. It was right on the seam, so I don't want to cut on the seam obviously because it's just gonna keep coming unstitched. But it's a stationary clip, so we're just gonna make a square. Do it as clean as possible so it almost looks like it's supposed to be there. There's the clip. Once that's on there, it won't be shown. It'll show when it comes off, but if I didn't do that, once I would have put it in there, would have locked in place, it probably wouldn't have come out unless you really yank it out. And yanking it probably break this off. I'm gonna guess that these lower clips are gonna go into that bottom channel. That's why it's cut that way, because once it falls right in there, it slides right in there. So hopefully we'll get it right the first time. It is a little, doesn't want to come out. A little bit of pressure in, and then it comes right out. Had I not cut it, it'd probably be worse than that. All right, I'm good with that. So now I'm gonna place this on the floor and start on the bottoms. All right, we know there's no sensors on here, so I'm just gonna take a razor blade to the listings just to hurry things up a little bit. If you use a razor blade, these tend to go dull really fast. So when you're cutting it and it stops cutting, just flip the razor blade around and it'll be like it's brand new again for some reason. But you just don't want to go too deep, because once it catches on these foams, you're going to want to just keep going, and it will literally roll over like this right on your finger. It just cuts you right up. So just be careful if you're using razor blades. If not, use the hog ring pliers or the dikes to take it off safely. All right, so this is like I was saying earlier. The listings go all the way to the top. So if I do put all those listings and I go to start the top on both sides, I won't be able to get to it because the listing is all the way here and I won't be able to get to that. So again, I'm just gonna hog ring this section here and this section here, do that, and then finish it off there and there. This one I'm sticking my fingers through there, but can't do it on every seat because there'll be like brackets right across there that you won't notice. As soon as you shove your hand in there, it's gonna fillet the top of your hand right off. Alright, same thing. Fingers to the edge and just roll the cover right over. Get that nice tight finish. And this is the part where I was keeping an eye on where these straps go, if it either goes around, over, or like that. Since we took a good look at it, now we know that it goes on the inside. So we'll just stick that in there now so we don't forget, because that's gonna pull all that material around the bracket and around the plastic and pull the back out right here too. All right, so when you go to put these straps, normally there'll be indentions to where you know where to put the straps. Because if not, you'll be looking and looking and looking, you won't know where to put them. So this one goes here, this one goes there, and that indention tells you that this one goes there. If you're not too sure, like this one probably can reach over there, but you see how it puts a lot of tension on it? It might rip it. It's hogging it if all else fails. Get our straps through so we don't forget those. See how long it is? And just tuck it right in there. Now on this one, because there's no double clips, double J clips is what they call it, I'm gonna apply the pressure downwards with my door tool, and then that way I can fold the clip over and tuck it inside. And you see why I cut that extra material off? Now we have a clean finish. The zipper somewhere there so it doesn't pull itself out. That's a nice clean finish. Now this one was different. This one had that big whatever that is. I'm guessing for a storage bin or something. That hole is slightly bigger, but we know it's there because it's a big thing that was there. Just want to be careful when you cut this stuff because this particular carpet is forgiving, because if you were to make too much of an incision, you can always go back and just tuck this carpet in there, and if you just play with it enough, it'll almost look like you never made a hole, so like you can almost see it's almost not even there. So it's okay, but you just don't want to go overboard with the cuts. Always make sure there's no little threads sticking out, especially out of the inserts. Now you could do it one of two ways. You can walk it in and guide it, or you can put it in the same way I took it out. I think I'm gonna guide it in. Alright, these, they usually have a guide pin like right there. Just look for the hole to center it, because if you put it on the wrong way, the seatbelt is going to face the wrong way and it won't work properly. Oh, another thing, they'll have these little lock clips on there. If you try to put it on there with your hand, you may be able to get it to whine a little bit, but that's going to prevent it. And do not put the gun on it right away, because it'll cross-thread itself. You just got to take your time with that one. And make sure you connect all your plugs. Now we'll get our seatbelts through our loops so they don't get lost in here.